Welcome, everyone, to the next in AI for Iraq's interview series. My name is Maya, and with me are Azuz in Iraq and Iman Rayan in Hong Kong. Today, we are thrilled to welcome from Japan Arisa Toyosaki. Arisa is the co founder and CEO of Cega, which offers a wide range of products on cryptocurrencies using a decentralized platform. Under Arisa's leadership, Cega has seen tremendous growth, crossing over half a billion of volume since its inception. Arisa, who came from a traditional finance background as a trader in Hong Kong and then moved into tech at Google, is an advocate for empowering retail investors in the crypto space and has taken an active role as an advisor and board member for the Japan Blockchain Association, contributing to the growth of blockchain technology in Japan. Arisa, in your very first interview since the major announcement of the acquisition of Sega, welcome to AI for Iraq.
مرحبا بكم في الحلقة التالية من سلسلة مقابلات AI for Iraq. أنا عزوز هنا مع مايا ينضم إلينا من ألمانيا وإيمان وريان من هونغ كونغ. اليوم يسعدنا أن نرحب بضيفة مميزة من اليابان أريسا تويوساكي. أريسا هي المؤسس المشارك والرئيس التنفيذي لشركة سيجا فاي، وهي منصة لا مركزية تقدم مجموعة متنوعة من منتجات العملات المشفرة، وتحت قيادتها نمت شركة سيجا بشكل ملحوظ، حيث وصل حجمها إلى أكثر من 300 مليون دولار منذ بدايتها. بفضل خلفيتها القوية في مجال التمويل التقليدي كمتداول في هونغ كونغ وخبرتها في مجال التكنولوجيا في جوجل، فإن أريسا شغوفة بتمكين مستثمري التجزئة في عالم العملات المشفرة، وهي أيضا عضو مجلس إدارة ومستشارة جمعية بلوكتشين اليابانية، تساهم بنشاط في تطوير تقنية البلوكتشين في اليابان. أريسا، هذه هي مقابلتك الأولى منذ الإعلان الكبير عن الاستحواذ على شركة سيجا. مرحبا بكم في AI for Iraq.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maya, and great to see you all, Azuz, Iman, Ryan. Yeah, super excited to be on my first interview after the big news for Sega has come out.
Hi, Arisa. This is Rayan in Hong Kong. Arisa, the last few weeks have seen Bitcoin continue its stunning growth, at one point hitting its all-time high of 103,000. Over the last 10 years, Bitcoin has grown an unbelievable 24,000%. The market cap of Bitcoin is nearly $2 trillion, making it a larger asset class than silver. What would you attribute to this growth, and what do you expect to see in the coming years for Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's definitely been a huge growth for Bitcoin and also cryptocurrency industry in general over the last few weeks. I know the theme of this channel is about AI for Iraq, but one of the things that really closely ties to the development of a country is also its economic policies and what could help grow its economic policies. And so, one of the things that I've been working on for the last many years is about cryptocurrency and the potential for cryptocurrency. When I started trading crypto full time, it was definitely less of an accepted technology, and it was also something that not a lot of people were even really curious about. But then now I think it's really hit this like majority adoption phase. So I'm super excited to talk about the growth. I think really there's four big categories of reasons that Bitcoin has started growing in the last few weeks. I think the first and the biggest is the political environment. As you guys all know, last month we've had the election of the USA, and the presidential candidate, Donald Trump, has actually been a very big proponent of crypto for the last 4 years. And so this political support is actually really elevating the prices of crypto across all tokens. And while there's some discussions around his like social policies in general for the political environment around Bitcoin, we have seen a large tailwind that has really shown positive impact on the prices. The second category is the economic value of Bitcoin itself. So, in the last few months, institutions like large mutual funds and retirement funds have really legitimized the value of Bitcoin. So, a big news that came out in the last few months was also around the ETF approvals of Bitcoin and also another cryptocurrency called Ethereum. And these types of institutionalized adoption has also created a lot of inflows into Bitcoin and Ethereum, which has kept its price. And basically, Bitcoin and Ethereum can go up, but there's a very large amount of capital supporting the foundation of its price movements. And then the third category is just social perception. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but 5 years ago when you talked about Bitcoin, people were like, "Ooh, that's kind of sketchy," and like, why would you be invested in this really underground technology? But nowadays, I think people have really been more friendly towards Bitcoin, and you're not perceived like the rumors around Bitcoin are no longer very negative, and people are like not really sure about whether it makes you a sketchy person if you're invested into Bitcoin. It's become a lot more legitimized. And so this social perception is also something that I think has really leaned into the growth, because now if you care about what other people think about you, you can still buy into Bitcoin and you can feel good about doing it and not feel like you're going against the grain. And then the last category is technology. So in the last few years, there's been more technology and innovation that's been built around Bitcoin. And so in again, 5 years ago, the perception around Bitcoin was that it was sketchy and it was really scary to use. But then now we actually have really trusted and secure technology, like for instance, an exchange called Coinbase or a wallet called MetaMask, where you can feel pretty confident that these tools are not hackable or handled with responsibility. And so these types of technological advancement has also contributed to the growth of Bitcoin. So overall, I think the four growth factors have really been around the political environment of having more pro crypto and crypto friendly candidates taking reins, the economical viability and value of Bitcoin through ETF approvals, social perception change around Bitcoin being sketchy now is like less sketchy, and then there's been a lot of technological growth around the Bitcoin ecosystem that makes it safer and more confident to trade.
Thank you, Arisa. What do you think are the advantages of Bitcoin over gold, and could you see Bitcoin surpassing gold?
That's a really interesting question. And Bitcoin and gold have both been discussed as stores of value for many years. And the other one, so one is the gold one is actually a physical storage of value. So if you're buying gold, at the very core of the experience, you're buying a physical bar of this metal. Whereas for Bitcoin, it's actually digital. So if you buy Bitcoin, you receive a token that is digitally stored. And so I think the fact that Bitcoin is a digital store of value means it is more scalable. Scalable meaning that it's much easier to send Bitcoin to another person than a physical gold, where you have to put it in an envelope and ship it to another country. Um, I think this is definitely one of the big advantages of Bitcoin over gold. And then I think the other thing is that, as perception changes around Bitcoin and more people are accepting of Bitcoin as a store of value, then the value of Bitcoin would go up. And I think this is more subjective and it's more about the trust element. People trade gold and there's value in gold, even though it's just a piece of metal, because they trust that there is value. And so that trust is still growing for Bitcoin. And I think eventually Bitcoin will surpass the value of gold. But I don't really know when that's going to be. As a good indicator, just a few days ago, Bitcoin has actually surpassed the value of silver. So I think that's definitely an indicator that one day Bitcoin could potentially surpass gold.
Thank you, Arisa. Azuz, over to you.
Hello Arisa, this is Azuz in Iraq. Over the last 10 years, we continue to see mainstream adoption of Bitcoin. Microsoft, AT&T, and PayPal all accept Bitcoin now at some level, and Tesla at one point allowed people to purchase car with Bitcoin. Do you expect Bitcoin to be more widely used?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Azuz. I think it's really interesting that a lot of these companies use Bitcoin as a form of payment. This kind of goes back to the previous question that Iman and Ryan asked about whether Bitcoin is a good storage of value. Is it going to have more value than gold at a certain point? And I think a lot of these companies were trying to create that value for Bitcoin by letting you purchase goods and services using Bitcoin. But I think, in the next 10 years, do I think Bitcoin is going to be the most widely used payment solution? I actually don't know. And the reason is because the way Bitcoin works is there's a public ledger. So you, me, all of us would be holding this transaction list of everything that has been bought and sold using Bitcoin. And then we constantly check with each other whether the list we all have is the same. And if we agree on the list, then that transaction gets validated, and that's how the purchasing actually happens. The issue with Bitcoin is that the validation of transaction is quite slow, and so right now we don't have that many people. We probably have around like a few million people worldwide who are actually using Bitcoin to purchase things and sending each other Bitcoin. And so it's okay right now that the transaction is not super fast. But if we have billions of people transacting on Bitcoin, it could make the speed of transaction a bit slower. And so what's actually happening nowadays is there are these other technology that's forming around Bitcoin. Like for instance, there's the Lightning Network, which is the second layer of Bitcoin that aggregates all the transaction on that layer first before validating it with the first layer of Bitcoin. So these types of technology could easily be a solution for a more mass scale payment. Another type of solution is also other blockchains. So there's also ecosystems like Ethereum or Solana who are really looking into making faster transaction services. And especially for Solana, they specifically are focusing on payments. And so Solana is extremely fast, and they have a slightly different technology as Bitcoin, where a lot of the validation happens in parallel. So it's quite fast and also very cheap. These types of new technology could potentially be the major source of payments, but I think overall, Bitcoin payments will also continue to grow, and other types of cryptocurrency payments, I am pretty confident will grow.
Thank you, Arisa. There are thousands and thousands of other cryptocurrencies in the market, some of which have a huge size like Ethereum and Binance Coin. Which of these coins do you expect to grow even more?
So I don't know if you guys are looking for financial advice or looking for names of coin to invest in. Um, Honestly, I think the industry as a whole will grow, but I don't have a specific view on, which particular small coin will grow, because I think um, in the long term, things that have fundamental value and have created technological innovation will grow. And so, for instance, I think Bitcoin itself will obviously grow in the future. I think the chains I mentioned earlier, like Ethereum and Solana, will also grow. But then again, there might be a completely new project that comes in and totally rewrites technological innovation. Also, new existing cryptocurrency might end up having some struggles with launching new updates, and they might end up slowing down. So, I honestly think there isn't a specific coin I'd like to talk about, except I think, if you are looking for projects to look into, the Ethereum space and Solana space has a lot of interesting projects, that focuses on payments, that focuses on the growth of the technology that I think is very, very interesting. And specifically with Solana and its like parallel processing and validation is I think a very innovative feat. So I think looking into that would be very interesting.
Thank you. Iman, over to you.
Hi, Arisa. This is Iman in Hong Kong. So, as of today, many emerging markets are looking at Bitcoin to fight inflation. For example, El Salvador is using Bitcoin as a reserve currency. And regulators in Iraq have not signed off Bitcoin as and crypto trading. So, what advice would you give to regulators and the mass public in Iraq as they look at crypto?
I think one of the biggest things that I definitely think about when talking to countries about how to look at Bitcoin is not necessarily about its short-term impact on the country's economy or the value of the country's currency, but I actually urge the government to look at the long-term potential. I think when you talk about technologies like Bitcoin, people call it Web3. And they call it Web3 because they're comparing it to the internet era. When the internet came out, it was called Web2. And what we've seen as a case study in Web2 is that countries that adopted new technology like the internet faster actually grew their GDP faster. And so, what I do think is that for countries that adopt Bitcoin and other forms of cryptocurrency as payment or allows for crypto trading or allows for crypto development, these countries will grow their GDP much faster in the long term. And I think it's actually net positive to be able to include that. And so, I would really urge the countries to look at upside and not downside of the potential of cryptocurrency.
Okay, thank you, Arisa. So there are a lot of warnings from the Iraqi government around crypto, also because they are worried about like the collapse of FTX and other scandals that have happened over the last couple of years. So, what advice would you give on best practices and other considerations?
Yeah, the downsides that happened in the last few years have obviously been sad, like the FTX collapse, the Three Arrows collapse. All of these large news have definitely shaken the market's confidence a little bit. But I also do want people to think about how early we are. So, Bitcoin is a technology that only came out in 2008, and we've only had it around us for the last 15 to 16 years. When the internet came out, it was in the 80s, and then people started developing it in the 90s. Back then, there were a lot of issues around internet and its confidence as well. Um, do you guys know Gmail? It's the Google's email service. Gmail was almost shut down in the beginning because there were scams that were happening through emails. People were asking others with email addresses to send money, and some people were falling to that scam. And then people were like, oh, Gmail is such a scary service, and we should shut it down. But can you imagine the world right now without Gmail? It's basically like that. Like I think with crypto and all the bad news around FTX collapse and funds like losing money because of crypto, these are, I would say, a sign that we're still early, and these types of bad behaviors does not actually shake the confidence of the technology itself and what the technology could achieve. And what the technology could achieve is basically a world where you don't have to change into another foreign currency to spend money at a different country. You can send money to friends in a certain currency and don't have to worry about the value going down all of a sudden. All these benefits are real, and I think if you think about the benefits, it's a no-brainer that um, there's going to be mass adoption. And I definitely think that like the negative news could potentially anchor some people's perceptions. But when you think about the value of what the positive user benefit these types of technology could bring, I think it makes sense for me to continue staying on this path.
Thank you, Arisa. Maya, over to you.
Arisa, structured products is a massive business in traditional stocks and bonds, and I think it's amazing to see Sega offering this suite in the crypto space. For those in our audience that may not know, what are structured products and why do they make sense for crypto?
Yeah, absolutely. So, structured products are investment products that are a combination of a variety of financial products. So, for instance, it's a combination of bonds as well as options, as well as swaps. And the combination basically creates a very attractive profile of how much returns you can get for the amount of risk you take. And what we have done in Cega is we create structured investment solutions around crypto. And it makes sense to do it in crypto because a lot of the underlying APYs, which are the returns that you get on these products, come from this metric called volatility. And when you calculate the volatility of prices for crypto, volatility is in general higher than normal asset classes like bonds or equities. And so, if you use crypto to make structured products, the returns are actually quite attractive. On top of it, in the past, these types of products were only accessible to the very rich people in the world who had a bank salesperson to talk to about buying these products. But by making it in crypto and also making the entire transaction happen in crypto, you can uh, invest in these products with just $1. In traditional banks, you have to put in like a ton of money because there's so much operation that goes in the background. But by making everything in crypto, the cost is much cheaper, it happens much faster, and so you can actually make it more accessible to everyone in the world. So that's what we do.
Thank you so much. What are the next steps for Sega and what should we look to expect in the coming months?
Yeah, so Sega as a company actually just got acquired by another platforms company. And so we're winding down our current experience on Sega.fi, and we are actually going to be moving our experience to a new platform. In the coming months, you should be following my Twitter to hear any new news. It's twitter.com/Arisa Toyo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arisa, to join us, and hopefully to speak to you soon on AI for Iraq.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone.